We have not. Our veteran would like us to. I was going to sit up here. Okay. Hey, I misplaced a pen. Have you guys got an extra pen in there?
Test. I hear we speak right into this.
Will, yeah. So, what I took your spoon with water. Is there any water in here?
No truth whatsoever. I'm a teetotaler. I'm a beer and wine guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a hard liquor guy.
Not anymore. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
When I go out now, it's 2 beers.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I know. It's enough.
If I'm really feeling good, I'll have a third one. You know that. Mary, do you want water?
To be asked this question. Oh, I have one. I have two actually. Get a drink.
I want to make sure that I was checking on his water bottle to make sure that,
Well, I asked about that when I came in. If there was a possibility of some gin in there.
Little vodka water would be really good.
I would be slurring from the very first moment, trust me.
I learned my lesson one time.
I'll make sure it goes to How far? We're going to call everybody to the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a request from a veteran in the audience that we all say the Pledge of Allegiance before we begin tonight. If you would, please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hello. No, that's not. Can you hear me now? Hey, there we go. Hello, and welcome to our candidate forum for our Senate, House, and County Supervisor positions. I'd like to quickly go over the structure for our evening tonight. Each of our sessions will begin with the candidates receiving 2 minutes for opening statements. After those 2-minute opening statements, we will take questions from the audience. So if you have any questions for candidates, there have been some note cards going around. If you would please write your question on a note card, and please do include your name on there as well. The candidates will receive 1 minute to respond to those questions. After the questions have been asked, each candidate will receive 1 minute for closing statements. The first two candidates who will be joining us tonight are the Democratic candidates for Iowa Senate District number 41. It's Mary Stewart and Ed Malloy. After the time period for this district, we'll take a short 3-minute break so we can reset for the Republican candidates for Iowa Senate 41, which is Marionette Miller Meeks. And Dan, I'm sorry, is it Cesar? That's the way I was told the pronunciation was? Caesar? All right, terrific, thank you. After Marionette Miller Meeks and Dan Caesar, we'll take another 3-minute break. We'll set for the Republican candidates for House District number 80. That's Holly Brink and Rich Keelig. Following their time, we'll take a short 3-minute break, and we'll jump into the county supervisor position on the Democratic side. Other things that we would like to make known ahead of time, we have also been passing out these cards. If you have one of these, this has important information about the new voter ID law that is coming into effect for the state of Iowa. Starting in 2018, Iowa voters are being asked to bring a form of ID to the polling station. It will be a photo ID, and there are several different forms of ID that have been identified as appropriate for the polling stations. In the year of 2018, there will be a provision that allows folks to sign an oath for their identification instead of having a form of identification on them. Starting in 2019, all voters will need at least one of these forms of identification at the polling station. So if you would, please make sure you grab one of these while you're here today so that we can be clear on what those voter IDs and those forms of identification are. I believe with that, we'll be ready to begin. So our first two candidates who are joining us tonight are the Democratic candidates for Iowa Senate 41. That is Mary Stewart and Ed Malloy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I will try to keep us on track. So we will start. Ed, you will begin. You will have a 2-minute opening, and then we will start taking questions from the audience. You will have 1 minute for both to answer those, and then, as he said, a 1-minute closing. So, Ed, your 2 minutes, please.
Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to speak to the voters in Wapello County. My name is Ed Malloy, and I've been mayor of Fairfield for the past 16 years and a successful businessman with a passion for public service and for Iowa. I learned my values of hard work and inspired leadership from my father, who served as a police officer for 42 years, and my mother, who raised 8 kids and later had a 20-year career in public education. Fairfield is one of the most successful cities in Iowa over the last 15 years. Since the 2010 U.S. Census, Fairfield and Jefferson County have grown by 9.4%, while 73 of Iowa's 99 counties have lost population, and I'm concerned about our rural areas being left behind. As a councilman and mayor, I have succeeded by listening to citizens and working together to solve problems. My success has come from bringing people together for progress with public-private partnerships and by engaging the community in long-range planning and visioning to guide our progress. Iowa needs a new vision and new voices to revitalize rural Iowa and raise our small communities all over the state to a standard that brings people back and provides opportunities for young families to thrive. This is built on a foundation of strong public education, a strong community college system, and support for higher education. It is also built on a competitive opportunities for all, including those who depend on their rights to collectively bargain, a higher minimum wage, and incentives for entrepreneurs and business creators. We should also favor being welcoming in our state and embracing our immigrant communities. Our revitalized rural Iowa also must have significant progress on clean water and clean environment, along with more clean renewable energy that creates the jobs of the 21st century. This approach of embracing our opportunities to strengthen and grow rural Iowa is a winning formula, and I want to bring this to the Iowa Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary?
I also want to thank the League. I'm a lifelong Southern Iowan, born and raised in Centerville. I'm the child of a single-parent home where a mother without a high school diploma and no job skills raised 2 little kids by cleaning houses and doing laundry. That's important because I've lived the life many people are struggling with now. I know that for my family and for millions of others, hard work wasn't enough to make ends meet and get ahead. It took a helping hand. As the first generation of my family to graduate from college, I know the difference government made in our lives and in the lives of others. Public education, job training programs, and college tuition assistance are only a few of the programs that changed our lives. Des Moines isn't listening, but I am, and I have been. I've spent the last year campaigning, and I've spent more time listening than talking, listening equally to people's views I share and to those whose opinions differ. I am a 33-year college administrator who supervised employees and facilities in 10 counties, who brought partners to the table every day to work on common goals. I'm not a career politician. I am a person just like you who didn't agree with what I saw happening in Des Moines and who decided that if others wouldn't step up to the plate, I would. My campaign is grassroots. I've campaigned with honesty, integrity, an open heart and mind. I don't come from a position of money. I'm not a person of wealth. My achievements have been hard fought and honestly earned. My campaign has been financed by you and people like you. I've driven 10,000 miles this past year meeting you, listening to your concerns. Together, we have begun to form a vision, and now it's time to take that on to the State House by electing me as your next state senator, where I will continue to listen and to make our voices heard.
Thank you, Mary. Mary, you will also take the first question tonight. First question, please.
Thank you. The lead question is,
You need to pull the mic down.
yes, I can. What is your position on supporting the backfill payment that has been promised the cities and counties and was not voted on this year, but is supposed to be brought up next year?
Well,
Yes, I can. What is your position for supporting the backfill payment that was promised when the state took the money and it did not pass this past session? It is supposed to come up in 2019.
I fully support continuation of the backfill. I think that's money that's proven to be critical to counties, and every county will experience the loss of services if that money is removed. I think something that's important to listen to, and I've heard that a number of times this year, is that the backfill wasn't touched this year. And those seem to be the last two words in every sentence. We've heard it when it referred to IPERS as well. So backfill is something that needs to continue. Otherwise, it would be to the detriment of counties and cities. Rural areas in particular will feel the pinch especially hard. So that's my position.
Thank you, Mary. Ed?
The history on the backfill is that it was a program to reduce commercial property taxes by 10% over a 5-year period of time. And the promise at that time was that cities and counties, school districts would be refunded the money that they were missing from their valuations and property tax levies, and that this would continue indefinitely. I think everyone understood that at a certain time it would go away. It's basically a failed promise because the principle behind reducing the commercial property taxes was supposed to stimulate more commercial property development all over the state. Now, we know that our urban areas have been doing quite well, but as I mentioned before, 73 of 99 counties in Iowa have lost population, and those dollars cannot be replaced. Ottumwa is going to lose over $500,000 in the city budget. Fairfield, $179,000. Bloomfield is going to lose 13 to 17,000. Van Buren, these are the cities in our district, the county seats. It's going to impact our district significantly. The plan right now is to roll it out over 3 years for those that have had increased valuations and over 5 years for those who have not had increased valuations. So we are going to feel this in the years to come.
Thank you, Ed. Question number 2. And Ed, you will take this question first.
Questions from the audience for the senators. Our teens, young people move away for jobs. What can we do to retain them in our communities? This was asked by Ken Malloy.
Oh, my brother gave me a softball. Thanks, Ken. This is an important theme for me because I know what's possible. I know what can be done in rural cities. I know that we can retain our young people. I know we can attract a new workforce. I know that we can entice entrepreneurs to seed new businesses in our communities. We also can help fill the jobs that are open now through skills training, through our community colleges. And there are a suite of programs that we can provide: incubation of entrepreneurial ideas, access to venture capital, increased broadband, ways that we can prepare communities to realistically attract and retain our young population.
Thank you, Ed. Mary?
Well, after 33 years in the community college system, I'm well acquainted with the job training needs of the area. Most of you probably know that Indian Hills is a key player not only in job training, but in the economic development initiatives that take place in this area. We need an effective advocate in Des Moines. That's certainly the case. But I also look at the tax credits that are given to major corporations in the state and question whether or not those actually deliver the jobs that are promised on a statewide basis. I often point out to groups that I speak with, 29 major corporations in Iowa last year paid no state taxes at all, but yet received a total of nearly $42 million in tax credits. If even a fraction of that were distributed across the 4 rural counties of southern Iowa in District 41, we can only imagine what a difference that might make. The other thing that attracts jobs are good schools, good infrastructure, positive business climate, and you get those things through funding. You can't have good schools without money, and you cannot continually cut taxes and expect to expand business and growth opportunities in rural communities.
Thank you, Mary. Question number 3.
How important is development of renewable energy resources, particularly community-led solar, to the economic vitality of rural Iowa?
Mary, you will take the first.
Well, I think it's critical to rural Iowa. One example of that, Bloomfield now has the largest solar array in Iowa, put in place by a Fairfield company. Fairfield, as I understand it, is about to undertake a project of similar or larger scope and size. But we know that renewable energy is the future for Iowa. Fossil fuels are not our future. And anything that we can do to increase that, not only the energy resources that are available in southern Iowa, but the jobs that that will bring to rural communities will have a positive impact.
Thank you, Mary.
Fairfield has had leadership in this area since 2008. We took a year within the city to develop a strategic plan that we called our Go Green Plan that had sustainable strategies for all areas of our community, including energy conservation and renewable energy through solar. During that time, 2 new companies were formed. Those 2 companies at this time are responsible for developing over 10 megawatts of Iowa's 70 megawatts of power. There's 2 megawatts of distributed solar in the city of Fairfield right now. There's another development that's going in that will be 1 megawatt, which will also include battery storage. We can lead in this area. We all feel very good as Iowans that we generate 37% of our electricity by wind. I think it's solar's time. And my proposal is to solarize the Capitol. I would like to see us develop solar energy for the Capitol building and for the Capitol complex. I will be developing a pro forma for that to show the return on investment, the energy savings, but I think it will demonstrate our commitment to solar energy going forward.
Thank you, Ed. The next question.
Do you feel privatization of Medicaid is working as intended? If not, what policy would you advocate for?
Ed, you will begin this question.
Okay. Well, from the conversations that I've had around the district during the campaign, it's pretty clear that the privatization of Medicaid is not working for a lot of families. It's not working for institutions. I think it's hurt a lot of folks because we've moved to a model that we were promised would deliver savings through efficiency, but actually has backlogged requests, has gone into more of a business model of denying care to those who most need it. Here in Ottumwa at Tenco Industries, where the workforce is a disabled workforce and they depend on their Medicaid payments, they have had to hire 2 administrative positions just to fight the private insurance company that is governing this. I think we should go back to a state-managed care model. I think we can build this out with a more efficient system, but we need to be sure that we are meeting the promises that we've made through this program for those families who most need it.
Thank you, Ed. Mary?
I think the privatization of Medicaid was a mistake that was made. I've been able to talk to physicians, to rural health care agencies around the district over the past year, and there seems to be common agreement about that. Patients are either going without services, agencies are going without payment, or at least payment on a timely basis. So it's not serving anyone very well at this point. I happened to sit through a healthcare forum last fall where there was a discussion and all of the legislators from the area were present. And there seemed to be bipartisan support in that room for the fact that the current system is not working for Iowa families. So something definitely needs to be changed. It was interesting that this year, the article in the Des Moines Register, the Department of Human Services was trying to ascertain the amount of savings that Medicaid had provided to the state over the past year, and there's not even common agreement on that. So I think something needs to be done. I don't know. I wouldn't be in a position to say until I was in the State House looking at all the options available exactly how we might go about that.
Thank you, Mary. Next question.
Given the fact that Bolton's isolated incidents of sexual misconduct occurred a long time ago, and he has been a thorn in the side of the GOP on women's rights, labor, and health care, could GOP operatives shake the bushes to find the accusers? Do you think that Bolton's articulate voice should be silenced? The remainder is illegible.
Mary, you will take this question first, please.
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Shake the bushes? I'm not. To find his accusers? Well, I think the women that made those accusations did come forward, if I'm not mistaken. You know, I do believe that there should be a zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment, and we see that story play out time and time again. We've witnessed it this year in the Me Too movement, and I've made the statement before that I think it's a national shame that a Me Too movement even needs to exist. We shouldn't tolerate any kind of harassment in the workplace. I don't know if that fully addresses that question, but I guess if the issue is whether or not that type of behavior should be tolerated, then it absolutely should not be. And to my knowledge, the people who made the accusations did come forward at the time that they were made.
Thank you, Mary. Ed?
You know, it's unfortunate that progress has to come in this way, but this is progress that we as a society need to make, and that is that women have courage to come forward with stories that are current or older, things that they have been living with in their lives for many, many years in silence. And I think it's very important that that these come out. And I think at this point in time that I tend to believe the accusers because they are in that environment where they found the courage and they found the responsibility that they carry to come forward so that other women will not have to go through this. And I think we need to know this about our leaders and our aspiring leaders as well, because there is no room. We should have a zero tolerance atmosphere. Someone should also be innocent until proven guilty. But at this point in time, I do believe the accusers in this sense, and I think that Senator Bolton did the right thing.
Thank you, Ed. Question.
Would you consider rescinding the fetal heartbeat law that was passed in the previous legislative session?
Ed, you'll take this one first, please.
Yes. I think that the law basically put a lot of pressure on women, and I don't think it is a productive law for our society. I understand the strategy behind the Republican Party to put this forward for a court challenge to see how far it would go, but I don't believe that it is the right law for Iowa. I don't believe it is a welcoming law. I don't believe that it is one that sends a good message to women. You know, the issue of abortion is something that's very personal. And, you know, for me, I always regret when someone is in that position, but I want to be sure that they are surrounded by their doctor, the professional counseling services, their family, access to ways that they can make the right decision. But I think that decision is protected by the Constitution and lies with the woman.
Thank you, Ed. Mary?
Well, I believe that the 6-week bill is inappropriate on a number of levels. And one of those, the first being that there are many women who do not even realize they are pregnant or do not know they are pregnant by the 6th week of pregnancy. So I think that bill addresses something at far too early a stage. As I've walked, canvassed the county and gone door to door, I've actually had women share their personal stories with me about this issue and how very personal they feel it is, and that it does not, should not be a question of government. It's a very personal issue between a woman and her physician, and they've made their decisions for a variety of reasons. They believe those should remain personal positions. And the other thing would be that it is unconstitutional. I believe that this challenge will cost the state of Iowa and Iowa taxpayers millions of dollars, just as the sexual harassment lawsuit did earlier this year.
Thank you, Mary. Next question.
What is your position on campaign finance reform?
Mary, you'll take this first, please.
I am a firm believer in campaign finance reform. As a candidate, I know how difficult it is to raise money, and I know how difficult it is to run an effective campaign in the face of big money. I think we've all seen what the influence of dark money has done in the state of Iowa, and I don't believe that's appropriate in any way, shape, or form. The campaign contributions that I've received, I've gathered from people around this district and some people that, people I've never met before who believe in a cause or believe in the issues that you support. And I believe that's the way campaigns should be run. Big money in government simply don't result in a very positive solution for taxpayers, for citizens, for anyone.
Thank you, Mary. Ed?
Yes, I believe in campaign finance reform. I think that we've gone too far in the direction of allowing corporations to have influence in our election process. And the closer you get to Washington, D.C., the stronger that is. In Iowa, I think those effects are definitely felt as well. But, I think for myself, coming from a nonpartisan government environment, working in the city council and as mayor, where everyone is working on the basis of doing what is best by consensus for our community, we can't be influenced. And you get to the next level, and there are expectations that I think are undue pressure on candidates to represent their particular party or those corporate interests in a way. Shorter campaign seasons would help that a lot, and limitations on campaign financing. But in these local elections, we all go to our family and friends and those we inspire to get donations, and it works best that way.
Thank you, Ed. This will be question 8.
Where do you stand on cannabis legislation regulation?
Ed, you'll begin.
Okay. Well, I think that Iowa's law currently is too restrictive, because either you're going to accept that medical cannabis has value or you're not. And I think there are a number of people with pain management concerns or with debilitating diseases that cannot have access to cannabis through Iowa's current legislation. So I would like to see that expanded. It has to do with THC levels and the list of diseases that it would be applied to. I'd like to see the federal government move cannabis from a Schedule I drug to a Schedule II drug, which would allow for research. Because I think that most people don't really understand that there is a therapeutic value at this point in time. Families and people in pain who are forced into a situation to use it will give you stories about how it really helps them. But without a high level of research, I don't think we're going to get farther. So that's where I would like to see us go.
Thank you, Ed. Mary?
Well, I would just say that I completely agree with that. That's an issue on which we would be in absolute agreement. And I don't understand. I think there are families in the state of Iowa that are suffering from the reluctance of the state to move forward with their policy. Beyond that, I would just say that I believe that should be moved also to a Schedule II drug. I think there needs to be more research, but I think the availability of that, increasing the options for families and for patients, is extremely critical and would alleviate a great deal of suffering in the state. If anybody had the opportunity, there was a recent 60 Minutes program that focused exactly on this issue and the people that realize the benefits of cannabis.
Thank you. All right, this will be the time for your closing remarks. So, Mary, you will be the first one up for closing remarks.
You've heard from both of us this evening. I'm proud of the work I've done professionally and politically, and I'm very proud of the campaign that I've run to this point. I wouldn't change one moment of the experiences or the conversations that I've had with people of all walks of life and all beliefs. I'm proud of the work I've done in Southern Iowa, and I'm prepared to give us the voice we need in Des Moines. The last 2 years have seen great change, and women's voices are being heard in ways they never have before, in workplaces and in city halls and in state houses. But we still have a long way to go in gaining full equality, and that needs to happen in the state house as well. When it was time to step up, I did. I stacked my credentials and my professional and political experience up against anyone's, and I promise to take your message and your voice to Des Moines to make sure we all are heard. We're in this together, just as we've been from the start, and now I think it's time for us to take it to the finish line. Thank you.
Ed?
Representing the 41st District in the Iowa Senate would be an honor. I am ready and prepared for the work and understand the responsibility I have to work with everyone. We owe it to the voters to change the culture in Des Moines and work in a bipartisan manner for the betterment of our state. I believe a fresh, experienced voice is needed to bring in new ideas and policies that can move us forward. A new focus on rural revitalization will strengthen our entire state, not just our urban areas, and we will be better prepared for our future. And I firmly believe that we must do everything we can to clean our water and preserve our soils now. I believe that experienced leadership and a track record of success make me the best candidate to get these things done in Des Moines. I thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to present our ideas, and I want to congratulate Mary Stewart on a good campaign.
I want to thank you both very, very much. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
Thank you. We'll take a short 3-minute break, and then we'll be joined by the Republican candidates for Senate 41. That's Mary Netmiller Meeks and Dan Caesar.
If you did not get your question answered, please reach out to the candidates and have a conversation with them, please. Thanks. Time to stretch. Yes.
Thank you.
And he doesn't feel like it would if he can't listen to all three.
I know. Well, no, I don't. Hello. How are you?
No. Do we talk? No, that goes down.
I'm very disappointed, Gene.
No, it's up as high as it'll go.
There's no.
It is what it is.
bars, there's no snacks. Nothing.
Okay, testing, testing.
Hello. No, you look.
No, my voice is not soft.
She was a colonel. Colonel's voices aren't soft. Yeah. I understand, yeah.
I'm fine. How are you?
Intel.
Same exact questions. I thought you had kind of done that. I thought you were going to do that. I didn't. Okay.
Whoever wins.
Can people go ahead and take their seats, please? Okay.
But they don't realize.
Can everyone take their seats, please? Thank you.
I think Richard Keelig may outrank me.
Ready?
Or maybe my
We're
husband.
ready.
All right, we're going to get started with our next group of candidates.
Excuse me, we're getting started, so can everybody please take their seats and be respectful of our candidates, please?
Thank you very much. Senate 41, Dan Caesar and Mary Miller Meeks will be presenting today. And we again will start with opening statements. They each get 2 minutes. Dan will be the first to present to the audience. And then Marionette, you will be next. And then we will go to the 8 questions. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to this forum. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. It's very much appreciated. There are 2 functions of a senator, and I don't think we're going to hear very much about the distinctions between the 2. Can everybody hear now? Hello? Can you hear? Okay.
He's trying to get between the feedback and the volume, so.
Okay. So I focus, there's 2. One is constituent services, and the other one is policy. I prefer to concentrate on the area that traditionally has been the larger of the 2, constituent services. In that vein, there's a concept called standing. An Iowa senator has standing. So, for example, if someone has a problem with the state government, you can come to me and I'll have access to not only your information, but I'll be able to go into whatever office that I think is important, and we will fight together to get your resolution. This is what I've done my whole life. I take personal initiative to get involved with people, and I help them. I take responsibility to help them. That's why I'm running, because I have a track record of getting involved with people. And in this society, with the litigious nature, it's one thing if you have the funds and the money, but a lot of times you don't. But it's nice to have someone who's on your side and who can get things done. That's why I'm running. It's very simple. When there was a new bridge that had to be built in Keosauqua, and everybody was up in arms, it was not going to be done the way that folks wanted it to be done. I got involved. DOT gave me staff and resources. We came up with a plan that was the best for the community and the state. That design went on to become a national winner and international, and addressed the needs. People were brought in and worked, and their views were heard. when the new jail had to be built in Keosauqua. And again, they were told that they had to. The state said, you have to do this. I and Wally Dick, Democrat and Republican, worked together to get everybody on the same page. So we got to the point where we could build a new jail. And that wasn't very easy, but we did it. Handicapped accessibility at the post office. That was difficult to do. Everyone said, you can't do it. It's the federal government. At one point, we had to form a strike committee, and yes, we struck the post office. It worked, and we got it done. I can go on and on and on. When Vedic City was first being built, would be developed, they ran into some roadblocks. The plan had been rejected. I had just completed a plan that was accepted when I was the mayor of Mount Sterling. So I'm here to say, I'm here to serve the people. I've had the experience, the best of everyone running to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Mariette?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, Ottumwa City Hall, our media stations that are here today, and most importantly, all of you that are here and all of you that are going to either read it in the paper or watch it on television later. Because without all of this being put forward, it's really hard for candidates to get known and for people to know what it is that candidates stand for. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Some of you know me as the eye doctor. Some of you know me as a person who ran before and whose name you saw on a barn sign throughout the district. And some of you know me as the mom of 2 kids that attended Ottumwa High School and elementary school and middle school here in town, or as the soccer coach who only did that for a very short while because it's hard to teach first graders how to play soccer. I'm from a family of 8 kids, sort of like Ed Malloy. Neither of my parents had gone to college. My father was a master sergeant in the Air Force, so we traveled around. My mother did a variety of jobs. We used to call her a librarian, although she didn't have a degree in library science. And I used to tag along with my mom to the library and had a love of reading, which has remained with me all of my life. When I was 15, I was burned. I'm the 4th of those 8 kids, and at 15 years of age, decided that I was going to go to medical school and become a doctor. When I got out of the hospital 6 weeks later and told my parents this, they were just a little bit astounded. There was no money. No one had gone to college in our family. My 2 older brothers went into the military, one in the Green Beret and then the Secret Service, one to Vietnam. My older sister wanted to get married and have children. So here there was, the little runt of the family, wanting to go to college, and not only to college, to medical school. So at 16, I left home, went to San Antonio Junior College, became a nurse, enlisted in the Army at age 18, and eventually went to medical school and then was attracted to come to Southeast Iowa. So why with all of that would I run for office? Because I'm tenacious, I'm dogmatic, I persevere, and I have a strong interest in attracting people to Southeast Iowa the same way that myself and my family was attracted to Southeast Iowa. And we can do that with those attributes and those qualities. Thank you.
Thank you, Marionette. Question number 1, and Marionette, you will take it first after it's asked. And it was me.
Okay. The lead question is, again, what is your policy of supporting the backfill payment that was not made in last year, but was promised to come up again in 2019?
So the question was, what is my thoughts or policy or ideas about the backfill payment? So as was correctly alluded to during the first session, the backfill payment was to make up for reduction in commercial property taxes. And as a small business owner, I can tell you that what you pay in property tax is very important to your bottom line. And it's important to being able to attract business to our area, which we desperately need. So I am in support of restoring the backfill payment and making sure that it's paid for in years to come, as was promised when we reduced the property taxes.
Thank you. Dan?
Her answer is very good. So has what was Mary and Ed's. It's a promise that was made, and I assume that's a promise that we'll keep. When I get to the Senate, work with the caucus, we'll always remind them of that. If you make a promise, you keep it. And especially since I was a small town mayor, I know what it's like to work with a budget, struggling economies, and it's not fair. Now, I know this is going to be an attempt to do that. We'll see how the economy overall is, because that's going to be a big determinant in what they can do. but I'll do what I can to dog it and keep it on the front burner. Remember, you're talking to someone who could well be in the majority, which means I'll have a place at the table. And the way it works in Des Moines, unfortunately, if you're in the majority, you get to make rules and you get to say things. However, if you're in the minority, you pretty much shut out. So I'll do my best.
Appreciate it. Question number 2.
Our teens and young people move away for jobs. What can we do to retain them in our communities?
Dan, you'll take this first, please.
You know, I think we have a very good economic development package. I think we have a good team. I think they're doing what they can. But when I was a small town mayor, it's hard because you're not competitive for grants and money. And it's unfortunate. Size matters. So you go there and you hope that as a senator, I'll be able to put in a private amendments and so forth to try to get funding and grants for the cities and agencies that need the money, and we'll do what we can. But there's no guarantees in a tight budget.
Thank you. Marionette?
Well, as a former small business owner and a person who's tried to create jobs and has created jobs, I do think that the commercial property tax is a step in the reduction is a step in the right direction. And the reason for that is, again, that's one of the things that adds to your bottom line as a business, as an expense to you. But there are other things that can be done as well. In the earlier session, there was mentioned entrepreneurship, creating jobs for young people to come back to, doing the same thing with my own 2 children, but also making a community vibrant and a place that people want to come back to. There's a trail system that's been developed here in Ottumwa and in Fairfield, and then along, even in our southern counties along the river, are things that help make it a vibrant community. Creating green jobs is certainly something that can be done, and I think is very forward thinking and is where progress will be made, but more needs to be done. We've got a great educational system in both Ottumwa and in Fairfield, both of these communities, which I think strengthening that in the higher education is a way to also draw young people back to our communities.
Thank you. Question?
How important is development of renewable energy resources, particularly community-led solar, to the economic vitality of rural Iowa?
Marionette, you'll take this first, please.
I don't think it's only solar that's important in the renewable energy sphere. And we are ideally suited in Southeast Iowa to look at renewable energy on a variety of fronts. So solar certainly is available, wind energy is available, but we also have a rural community with farming. And so there's the ability of biomass, biodiesel. So there's other opportunities that are available to us. We haven't talked about waste management and what can be done in creating fuel sources from our landfills, of which we have one here in Ottumwa. But there's a variety of sources other than solar that can be tapped into. They will create jobs, not necessarily as many jobs as we would hope, but it's certainly an avenue for job creation. And I think there's a level of excitement in young people when you talk about renewable energy and protecting the environment that helps draw them to our community. Using our community college system and Maharishi system in Fairfield Maharishi University, I think we can tap into research and development and look for other sources of energy development. As we know now, we have a problem with battery storage for renewable energy.
Thank you very much. Dan?
I think this is an excellent point. We must remember people want freedom. And I believe if people want something, they should have the right to have it. If they want to go up the grid, they should be able to do that. We should give them the resources. For example, if they want to put their home on solar or put wind or whatever, the system shouldn't stand in their way. They should try to help them and facilitate them so that they can best decide what they want to do with their property and with their homes and lives. I think this is something that the government can do, is act as a catalyst and as something to have an incentive to help them. But it always comes down to what is it worth to them and what are they willing to pay for it. And that is something that has to still be recognized. The government can't pay for it all and it can't do it all. But the government should not stand in their way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Question?
Do you feel privatization of Medicaid is working as intended? If not, what policy would you advocate for?
Dan, you will take this question first.
This is a very interesting question because it goes to the heart of what is capitalism. I was talking to a delegate over at the district convention we had in the Republican Party in Iowa City. I said, so what's the difference between privatized system and a public? He says, I don't know. I said, so is there any difference? I don't think so. Well, there is. When you have a privatized system, you have a group of people who are motivated to what? Make a dollar, to cut cost, and to actually try to get it done in a reasonable sense of the word. When you have the public, there is no such thing as cost control. This is the difference. How do we control cost? This is a problem throughout the entire government. When we have a program and we fund the program, the people in the system fulfill what the program says, irrespective of cost, because that's not what they're there for. They're there to administer and deliver a program. Should we look at how we can get the same outcome for the dollar? Now, I don't know if that's happening all across the board. I know it is in most cases. Could it be improved? Well, of course. Should we work on that? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Marionette?
The privatization of Medicaid or sending out the expansion of Medicaid, because I think it's important to remember that Medicaid was expanded through the Affordable Care Act. So there are companies that are managed care companies which are overseeing the benefit system under Medicaid. There's a cost to this that I think it's important that we look at and realize in any system that's changed, addressing the concerns of people, be they providers, be they hospitals, be they the patients themselves. There has been an increased access to care, which I think is very important, that we not change the Medicaid system to their detriment. But at the same point in time, remember that under the Affordable Care Act, the cost that was being borne by the federal government at 100% and then 90% is going to change and reduce. So our state is going to have to look at the cost of the current Medicaid with the expansion, and then what are their costs going forward, and looking at how's the best way to deliver that care, provide benefits, provide access to care and quality health care at the same point in time as preserving that access and health care that citizens currently have.
Thank you very much. Question?
Given the fact that Bolton's isolated incidents of sexual misconduct occurred a long time ago, and that he has been a thorn in the side of the GOP on women's rights, labor, and health care, could GOP operatives shake the bushes to find accusers? Do you think Bolton's articulate voice should be silenced?
Marionette, you'll take this first.
I don't think sexual harassment should be tolerated at all. And I'm going to illustrate this by a story. I told you that no one in my family had gone to college, and I was the first person to go to college, graduate, and the only one ever to go to medical school. So imagine being a very young lady interviewing at a very prestigious university for your residency in ophthalmology, which was the hardest specialty to get into. You're with 25 people, all of which are male except you. All of the people interviewing you are male. Now, luckily, I had a little bit of Army nurse experience under my belt. I was the first person to be interviewed of all of the candidates, and I was being interviewed by someone who was 6'4". For those of you who have seen me, I am not 6'4". They put out their hand and extended it to me to shake. I'm standing outside their office door. I extend my hand, and they look down at me and say, "Are you going to get pregnant?" I look up at them and say, "Not in the next 30 minutes." That story has gone around in the ophthalmologic academic community for I don't know how many years. And when I was recruited to come back to the University of Iowa and we recruited a second person, my chairman, who is not of my party, asked me what did he think that he offered the person that we recruited. And I said, "It doesn't matter to me, I don't care." He then proceeded to tell me that they offered them the same salary that I was being paid, even though I was their superior and I would be in charge of them and in charge of the entire clinic. And I said, "Why would you pay them the same salary you're paying me?" Do you know the response I got? Because he has his family to support. I looked at my chairman and I said, "I have a family to support too. So sexual harassment should not be tolerated, but we need to define what it is and make sure that everybody knows what the rules are so that both parties, male and female, are treated fairly. But women, we need to empower ourselves to speak our mind, to not allow sexual harassment to go forward, and it will not go forward when I'm in the Senate.
Very much. Dan?
First of all, I want to 100% agree with what she just said. I mean, but the premise of the question I reject. It is just not GOP. It is everybody. It's anybody. So the GOP does not have a problem special from anybody else. What it comes down to is that women, like she said, they just got to say, no, knock it off. It's not acceptable. That's the first step. The second step is there should be a special crime unit that women can feel comfortable talking to, because it's got to end. And the only way it ends is if it stops, and it stops when people do not tolerate it or go along with it. I've been in construction trades, I've been in management, university systems, and whenever I saw something, it might not have been in my department, it might not have been something, I would just advise the gals, speak up. If you want me to go with you, I will. But we can't tolerate it as a society. I think that's what's going on. It's a societal thing, and it's got to end, just like Marianne said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Question?
Would you consider rescinding the fetal heartbeat law that was passed in the previous legislative session?
Dan, you'll take this first.
You know, as a Catholic and as a Christian, I believe life begins at conception. No exceptions. Now, I think the fetal heartbeat bill was flawed, I think in several points, but I have to say I would have voted for it. If it's rescinded or knocked down, it doesn't make any difference. I'd come right back and say life begins at conception. Now, is it protected then? Roe v. Wade says not. It's only protected when it's viable inside the womb. I first brought this up when I was in the mock legislature of Ohio in May 2nd of 1970. And a baby is not part of the mother's body. It's a separate individual. And the baby has just as much rights to live as the mother. And so I would have to say, let's think about how we can work this through. Let's come together and protect life, and let's go forward. And let's find a way that we can help those involved. But we have to have our sense of balance, and let's protect life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Marionette?
I think, which was mentioned earlier, that this is probably something that's going to be challenged by the Iowa Supreme Court and will go forward. Whether or not it will be upheld, we'll know in the near future. And will it be a costly endeavor? Yes, it will. But sometimes when it comes to issues that are extremely challenging, that are controversial, and that create tremendous animosity on both sides, it is best that be challenged, be brought up legislatively, have the people decide, and then if it's challenged in the court system, I think that offers resolution to people on both sides of the issue. It's difficult as a woman to face this issue. I'm also Catholic. I am pro-choice, but it's a very sensitive issue. And when Roe v. Wade was decided, and even since that time, we have not done a favor to women. There are women who have had abortions who regret that they've had abortions and don't know where to seek solace or help or support. And there are women who are caught in an untenable situation that they're looking for guidance and a resolution to their situation and the best thing for they and their family to do. Ultimately, as a doctor and a healthcare provider, I think these are decisions that are best left to providers, to doctors, and to patients. I don't want the government in my healthcare decisions. And I think that's why it's a good thing to bring it up and to be challenged. But it is a very personal issue. When I talk to people, I can tell you women may support it or not support it, but they don't think that abortion should be used as birth control. We need to continue to educate. We need to make sure that young women have available resources, both for birth control and the educational wherewithal to be able to prevent pregnancy.
Time.
Thank you. Question?
What is your position on campaign finance reform?
Marionette, you'll take this first, please.
Well, like everyone else here that's running for a political seat, you have to raise money. And it's an extraordinarily difficult thing to do, to ask people for money, remembering it's not for you personally, i.e., you'll never see a $400 haircut on my campaign disclosure expenditures. But it's very difficult to raise money. But yet, money is a necessity when it's running a political campaign. There's only so much door knocking you can do. There's only so much meeting you can do, only so many town halls you can hold, but eventually you have to raise money. And the question is there a right for the government to limit what people can give, who can give, and does that involve their free speech? So far, the government has said, and the Supreme Court has said, that there are some limits, but that corporations can give money, individuals can give money, but we've also limited what can be given. So I think campaign finance reform is important. I think there are limits that are appropriate, but I also think we have to be careful not to use people's campaign contributions to be used against them and to be maligned in the public.
Thank you very much. Dan?
You know, here's one of those things that you have a conflict between the public interest and the personal. If you're running for office and you want to get elected, by God, you go to try to raise as much money you can. You go to shake as many hands, because that's the way the system works. On the other hand, if the people want the system to change, you have the power to change it. If you want public financing of campaigns, it'll be done. If you say you're fed up with big money and special interest, fine, then go ahead and ask us to change the system. As your senator, I'm here to listen. I'm not here to pontificate or just run the mouth and just say my opinions. If you want the system changed, I will be your voice and I will help you get it done. But it's the system we have today is what? The system everybody wants. If it wasn't, it'd be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. This is question number 8.
Where do you stand on cannabis legislation and regulation?
And Dan, you will take this first.
You know, this is an interesting topic. It comes down again to freedom, individual choice. We've been trying to back into a position of legalizing marijuana. And we've been trying to do away in such a way as to tippy-toe between a lot of different groups, a lot of different interests. And we're coming in a more and more convoluted system. It's becoming more and more bureaucratic. The code of IR just keeps expanding, and we're trying to come up with more and more ways. Again, what does the people want? Do you want the free use of marijuana? Do you want it restricted? Do you want it just for medicinal use? One way would be to have the state own it and control it, like they used to do with liquor and wine. Or another way is to let the private sector do it. But again, I'm not going to be sitting here saying I know the answer. But if the people come to me and say this is something that you want or you will have an idea, then that's what I'll go with and that's what I'll try to get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Each of you will have a closing statement. And Marionette, you get to start.
Do I get to answer the last question?
I apologize. I jumped ahead. I knew I was going to make at least one mistake
I didn't know
tonight,
if
so
we
I'm
ran
glad
out
it
of-
was with you. So
I didn't know
thank
if we
you.
ran out of time. I've actually been asked this question twice before in previous campaigns, although I haven't been elected. And so my answer is the same as it was 4 years ago, as it was 8 years ago, and as it was when I was director of the Iowa Department of Public Health, which is where the medical cannabis now resides. And that is, number one, the DEA classification needs to be changed. We need to be able to do research on cannabis, on marijuana, to truly know what the effects are and what the effects of newer, stronger, more powerful drugs are. Number two, we need to know how to determine if somebody is driving while impaired. We have that system for alcohol. We don't have that system for marijuana. And that system needs to be developed. There's not a good system right now in place for that. Number three, there are some medicinal purposes and uses for medical marijuana. And in that regard, it should be legalized. Whether or not it is sold through a government entity or if it is sold through a private system, that's something that can be discussed in the legislature. We also need to look at those states that have already legalized marijuana and see what the impact has been on their states.
Thank you very much. Now, your closing statement, please.
Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the City of Ottumwa for hosting us, and all of you who have attended here today. I think your involvement is very important in this election as we go forward. There are 4 strong candidates before you, and this is going to be an interesting election regardless of which way the primary comes out. What I can say to you is that no one is going to work harder to represent your interests in Des Moines. No one's going to work harder to see that Southeast Iowa becomes a place that attracted me 30 years ago and will attract young people, create jobs, and be a viable community that is a place where people want to live, work, and raise their families. If your candidate doesn't win in the primary, I'd appreciate your consideration and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you so much again for hosting us today.
Thank you very much. Dan?
Let's recap. When you look at a senator, 20% of what they're doing is what we've been saying here right now, policy. Senators don't make policy and senators don't lead. They go into a caucus. The Republican caucus has what, 27? Okay, we all bring our personal views and core values and we all have our platform. But what that caucus has is leadership, and the caucus decides what to promote in bills and what they will do for an agenda for that session. One senator doesn't control that. I will fight very strongly along the lines of said, that's 20%. No one besides me has talked about the 80% constituent services. When you got a beef with the state, who's going to be on your side? Who has standing to walk in and get answers? I will. Who will stand up for you when no one else will? And you can't afford a lawyer. I will. And I've got results before, and I'll do it again. I appreciate your vote on June 5th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Give them a round. Thank you.
Thank you both. We'll take another short 3-minute break. We will reconvene for the candidates, the Republican candidates for Iowa House District number 80. That would be Holly Brink and Rich Kelly Jr. Richard Kylie Jr. Thank you.
Thank you. You always a sweetheart. You're always nice. I got dressed up for this. Okay.
Hold on.
Gail? Can you guys take your seats, please? Everybody take their seats, please. Just as kind of a short thing here, I do want to say a lot of you who have voted in primaries before know you're going to have to declare a party when you go. Because you will only get a ballot for that party. You will not be voting for a Democrat here and a Republican there, and that will come in the November election where you can vote all over the place. But for primary, you have to declare a party because they're specialized ballots.
We're not that cool.
Right?
So an independent wouldn't be able to take her?
No.
No.
You have
Libertarian,
to. Yeah, even if you run as an
Republican, or Democrat.
independent. So there's going to be 3 ballots, a Democrat, a Republican, and a Libertarian. And there may be a green ballot, so there may be 4 ballots. Okay, so the opening statement.
Yes, we are ready for opening statements. We thank you all for returning and joining us. So first, Holly, you will get the first 2-minute opening statement, and then you will also take the first question when the time comes. Okay, so you may begin.
Hi, I'm Holly Brink. I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us. I grew up on my family farm, the east side, or in the middle of Keokuk County, basically. My husband and I live in Mahaska County on our family farm with 3 children, Garrison, Balin, and Harbor. For the last 10 years, I've worked with businesses and its employees to strengthen and find solutions to the healthcare crisis that we've all had, trying to find ways to help them find ways to be affordable in different situations that are coming. One of the biggest questions people ask is, why are you running? Basically, the number one reason is I'm just a Southern Iowa farm girl that I love Southern Iowa. My husband and I, we have fought to stay here in Southern Iowa. We've been very lucky to be able to find jobs and farm nights and weekends together. But we wanted to be able to raise our children in strong values with hard work. And I'm in a small community where everybody actually cares about each other. And even if you don't necessarily agree, you're still willing to help your neighbor. And we found that was important, and we wanted our children to experience it. And I want to ensure that the next generation has the same opportunities that we do. And by doing that, we need to improve our education. We need to work on our manufacturing and our revitalization of the rural economy. And we need to support our ag economy that actually helps support us. I'm not your career politician. I'm a mother. I'm a big community volunteer. I'm a lifelong resident here in Southern Iowa. And I would like your support and to step forward and run for District 80 and be your voice in Des Moines.
Thank you, Holly. Richard.
Yes, ma'am. Did you hear me?
Perfectly.
Oh, good. Cool. All right. Do you want me to start now? Yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity to come here and present my vision for our future in the state, and also my role as a hopefully future Iowa representative. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Richard Kylig, Jr. from Moravia. I have a passion for solving 3 major issues. The issues involve funding for K-12 public education, healthcare, and support for small businesses. In education, I've been entrusted with your most precious resource, your children, both at the high school level and also at the college level. My most recent science teaching assignments were at Centerville High School and Indian Hills Community College, where I was an adjunct professor. However, we need to increase the trade programs at the high school level to fill the demand for employment in these areas. The majority of my military medical career was in the U.S. Army Reserves. However, I did have 2 active duty tours, one in West Germany during the Cold War during the 70s, and the most recent as Chief of Microbiology at Brooke Army Medical Center, San Antonio, Texas. I was the first one hired in the state of Iowa under the Troops to Teachers program. As a member of service organizations, I am committed to improving the economy and the quality of life in our communities. Small businesses must have a trained labor force, operate without excessive license fees, and have minimal government and healthcare costs for expansion. The mental health access centers must be fully funded for the long term. How do we fund these concerns? I feel strongly that we need to work together to fix the real problem, which is the tax credit system in our state. It is shocking to learn that 29 of the largest companies in Iowa paid no income taxes in 2017. The cost to us, $66 million. Actually, you look at that figure, and it's actually twice the amount that was appropriated by the legislature to education in our state. So that's an amazing figure that it was doubled. I want to use that money to hire more teachers in the liberal arts and the trade tracks and the support staff. I will lead from up front. I will never let you down. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Richard, excuse
Thank
me.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Holly, you will take question number 1. Question?
Do you feel that the state of Iowa needs the equivalent of a Second Amendment protection right for its citizens?
I am a supporter of the Second Amendment. I feel that it is very important that we protect ourselves and our families. Many times here in the state of Iowa, we are a huge hunting area. We provide a lot of income that comes into southern Iowa from individuals coming from, either northern Iowa, out of state, and across the country. I feel it's very important that we can continue to protect, to continue with actually having that ability and protecting our families. Law-abiding citizens are the ones that are allowed to have guns. They are the ones, if you banned it, would be the ones that would also turn it in. It's not the criminals and the other parts that are not following what is needed. So as a law-abiding citizen, I feel you should have that right to have a gun, to protect your family, and continue hunting and what you feel is needed to do.
Thank you very much. Richard?
Yes, ma'am. I firmly believe in the Second Amendment. This country had to fight 2 wars of independence to really get its freedom. The Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, and the War of 1812 to 1815. And both times this country would have been done for without the ability to have arms to protect our country against a tyrannical foreign government. The legislature this year has approved a potential amendment to be added to the Iowa State Constitution. This the national amendment, the Second Amendment, will hopefully, once it is approved one more time by the state legislature and then voted on successfully by the people, will be placed in Article 1 of the Iowa Constitution. So I think that's a really good move. It's so important to be able to protect ourselves. Think of the countries that fell under communism, especially in Southeast Asia, and what happened to them when they had nothing to protect themselves. They were massacred. We cannot have anything like that happen if we fall under a terrible government like that. I'm sorry I ran over.
Thank you very much. Question 2, please.
How will you appeal to the farmers? They have been a key Republican base.
Richard, you will take this first, please.
Yes, ma'am. Well, certainly, we want to be very concerned about any of the current trade negotiations that are going on with foreign powers. On one side of the issue, and I know President Trump's working hard on that with his trade team, we've got to think of national security. Now, some of those national security measures may not include agriculture per se, but do include things like steel and aluminum, which can be needed for armored vehicles and also for aircraft. However, what about the soybeans and so forth? We're a big exporter of soybeans overseas to China. How is this all going to be affected? Fortunately, at this time, it looks like negotiations are continuing on, and that neither side is going to do anything drastic. But we do have a huge trade imbalance with China, and also the theft of technology from us. So I think that that's something we need to be very much aware of, and that we need to be thinking of in the future. Thank you, ma'am.
Holly.
Growing up on a family farm, I have two older brothers that had the opportunity to stay on the farm. However, we also had to find employment elsewhere. My middle brother, he owns a grain building company. My husband and I have also had to fight through the trends that is dealing with the young farmers in today. Many of us want to farm, but the problem is our family farms are made for one family, to support one family, not 2 and 3 and 4. My husband and I, he was at Crop Production Services for 13 years. He's now a financial officer at Farm Credit Service of America, and I also work off the home. But we have slowly grown our family farm. We now own 2 different farms close to our house. So I understand the struggles that they're going through. And I understand how capital expenditures deductions are very important to us. I understand how the sacrifices are made don't always come with a paycheck. But they are also, it's very important that we understand when a lot of the crisis has hit, the farmers are the ones that have actually stepped up and tried to help and save us. And they will work through day and night, no matter what it is. So I relate to them because I know exactly what it's like. I know the sacrifices that are made, and I also know what it's like to have to go to town and get a job to eventually grow. And maybe in 15 years, we can farm like we truly dream of. But until then, I'm going to keep plugging away, my husband and I, so our kids live on the farm and they can learn hard work, learn how to, raise the crops, help with our cattle and everything as a family.
Thank you very much. Question?
How could the Iowa government make education beyond high school more financially accessible to those who want to pursue it?
Holly, you will take the question first.
This is a big concern for a lot of people, but what we also need to look at is this is called an investment. College is an investment in yourself. Just the same as opening a business is an investment in yourself. And I feel it is very important that we look at it like that. And the other thing is in Iowa, we filled in the month of December 7,100 jobs with 59,000 different jobs available. And not all of those required college education. We need to talk to our young and our youth about the opportunities they have to fill our electrician jobs, to fill our plumbing, to move forward in other industries that we have available, not just you have to go to college to be somebody. I feel it's very important that everybody's somebody, whether you are an electrician or whether you get a 4-year degree, whether you have an 8-year degree. We need to look at that. We need to teach our youth about investing in themselves, and is the cost worth investing in? So it is a difficult decision whether to do, but I do think we need to talk to them about actually investing in themselves and the cost of it, not just, looking at the cost of it and saying that's a lot of money. Is the money worth it? And teaching them about economics that way.
Thank you very much. Richard.
Yes, we were asked a very similar question about this issue just the other evening, so it's interesting that it came up again and must show the interest that people have in it. Certainly, we've got the 2 routes. We've got community college and we have the regents. From my experience teaching in 3 different high schools and 3 different community colleges, we definitely have people that are more talented in trades, and we have people that are more talented for the liberal arts. Well, it's important for the guidance officials to sort that out. I think that the trades need to be improved in the high school. I know the Future Iowa program has a lot of good things in it, with the 70% education beyond high school by 2025. But I think we really need to get more trade educators in the high school, automotive, small engine repair, and so forth, so we can get the kids interested there. Also, the costs of the regent universities are very high, and the salaries that they're paying each other are way too high, and that's something we need to look at too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question?
What measures would you take to prevent school shootings?
Richard, you'll take this first, please.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think you got to be proactive, and there's no question about it. The Centerville Police Department and the Appalachia County Sheriff's Office were very proactive in preparing our high school for any type of emergency. We had regular drills. We had areas where we were taught to blockade rooms, and the police officers would bust in or lie to themselves. They did get mad at me once because I threw my military boots at them. But anyway, that's beside the point. You need to protect yourselves any way you can. And they said that was fine, what I did. Training, marking the building out with numbers, having constant drills, just like we do with tornado and fire drills. Have the students know what to do. Barricade the door. Don't let anybody in. The teacher's responsibility, go out in the hallway, see if there's somebody out there that shouldn't be out there. Grab that student, get them in the classroom, secure the room. Keep in contact with the office. And I'm pleased to see that the legislature's taken actions on that, but I'm also very pleased that our local and county police also trained us very well in this. And I just retired last year, so I'm quite aware of this, but we need to tighten up the security, one entrance. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Richard. Holly?
As a mother of 3 school-aged children, this is a heavy concern. I know there's a lot of discussion and talk that's going to be happening. So as a mother, I stepped into action with my own children, and we walked through, where will you be? My son that's in the middle school, what is the safest room of your school? I took action as a mother until we could figure these solutions out. There's a lot of things we need to do with, there's a lot of doorways into a school, and we need to have concerns with that. A lot of the buzzer systems have been entered. I believe Alvia has entered where one door, there's a camera, you hit a button to get into there, which a lot of school systems have. My elementary school where my kids go, they have that as well. I think it's important that we educate our teachers. We run the drills. I think it's important that we also, as an all around, we need to remember the people that are around us. You know, we need to think about the people around. A lot of times they're saying there's, signs and warning of that. Us as individuals need to make sure that we can communicate and either turn them in or be the friend and teach our children that if you see anything, make sure you're a friend to them and help them feel included. There is not one issue or one thing that is going to fix the school shooting issue. It is going to be a lot of us stepping forward and working together.
Thank you very much. Question?
How can we fix the problems caused by the privatization of Medicaid, especially the problems it has caused for the handicapped citizen?
And Holly, you will take this first, please.
This is a huge, huge issue. And it's not going to be a one size fits all. We need to look at the 2 different systems we've had. Now we've privatized it from being, government ran. What worked well in both systems? What has not worked well? And look at fielding and fixing the problems. Maybe there's some ideas we can work on collaborating and working together. But there has been, with ACA coming about, it's created a huge issue. I feel there's heavy concerns, not on the handicap side, but on the side in general, that a family of 4 making $94,000 in Southern Iowa qualifies for a subsidy. I think that's concerning because I don't think a family of 4 in Southern Iowa making $94,000 is struggling. So we need to actually look at the medians of the income in the counties based on that to help. That way their money is not being wasted and actually can be used for individuals that need it. On the handicap side, we need a lot of different help. I know with Tenco, they've had some issues. The COC that's out of Oskaloosa, Pella, and Indianola, they've had huge issues, and we've been talking, and my sign is up, sorry.
Thank you, Holly, I appreciate that. Richard?
Yes, ma'am. I've had some experience with the healthcare issues. When I was in the military, we had a program called Champus, and now it's called TRICARE. And the companies that ran those programs were private companies, and generally they did a good job. I think in this case right here, and what happened in the state of Iowa was that the intent was well-meaning to save funds. However, it just did not work out. You've got to make sure that the companies that are hired to do this process, because we went state to private, and we had 3 different companies running that, are able to do the job. And what happened was they just weren't able to process the claims. They were running for profit. And also there was a lot of denials and so forth. And that can lead to frustration to the facility that's providing care and also to the patients themselves. Hopefully the association plans and the Farm Bureau and Walmart procedure or legislation will help this out. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Question?
I'm concerned about water quality in Iowa. What would you do to improve our water quality and protect the environment?
Richard, you will take this one first.
Yes, ma'am. Water quality is a very important issue. The big thing is this: the runoff of fertilizer, nitrates, and phosphorus. Well, those are the things that living things need to survive. Phosphorus is needed to make a molecule called DNA. The nitrates are needed to be converted by one bacterial species to another to be made into products of nitrogen that plants can take up, and they make proteins from them. And what happens is, with too much of a runoff, you've got the algal blooms, the algae die out, the bacteria break them down, and they use oxygen in the process, and you get the death of the lake. What we need to do, I think, is to prevent those things, but also it's water quality testing that's very important. Test the levels of nitrates and phosphorus and other chemicals in the water. And you must have good quality control to make sure that that is being done. So that's a very important issue. Also to the facilities that are cleaning the water, that their quality control is good in their primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Holly?
A lot of issues we have been working on, and I think we're moving in the right direction. One of the issues that has been talked about is we actually have the ability to test our water quality where years ago we didn't. So we don't have a lot of data to necessarily 100% go on from where it used to be to where it is now. But there's a lot of organizations that are working on this, with the phosphates and the fertilizers and that types of things. That's what Cover Crop is working on, and they are taking the steps in the right direction to help protect that. We also have several organizations, we all know about Cedar Rapids flooding and all the things that have been done there to try to protect from that happening, to going into any of the runoff. So a lot of things are being worked on. There's groups, there's organizations that are working on improving it, they're tweaking it, and they're moving forward. So I would have to say that I would go along with what we already are doing. They say to test in the water, it's the trout, and our trout are improving. So I would support continuing what we are doing and tweaking it to make it better.
Thank you very much. Question?
What is your position on equal rights and equal pay for women?
Holly, you'll take this first, please.
As a woman, of course, we all want equal rights and equal pay, as long as we can do. I'm a firm believer, though, as long as we can do the equal job. There's jobs that I cannot do as well as a woman as my husband, who could lift a lot more. However, if we're up for the same job with the same equality, with the same abilities, absolutely, I will fight for equal equality. I think it is very, very important. As a female in the business world and in the ag world, I've been blessed here in Southern Iowa that we really do, for the most part, what I've seen is we really do treat women fairly and things like that. I've not yet, I have people joke at me that I walk around in heels and can drive a tractor, and they don't think that's possible. However, any of the employees or any of the jobs I've ever had, I haven't really had to experience it. But I do think it is important, and I've heard several stories of where it has happened, and I do not believe that women should be treated any different, and we should have a voice. As a woman, as a mother, I teach my daughter that she is a voice, and she has a right, and she does not need to step back. She is equal and can do it all.
Thank you. Richard?
Yes, ma'am. I have not really run into any situation like this because of the organizations that I've been in. In the armed forces, we were all paid equally, depending on our rank, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, full colonel, and so forth. If you made that grade, you were deemed capable of doing that particular job. My two bosses, the best two bosses that I ever had, were two female colonels, Colonel Daniels and Colonel Bador, and they were hard taskmasters, but they were excellent leaders, and they certainly deserve the pay that they have. In teaching, it's much the same thing. I cannot think of anything more demoralizing for a male teacher or a female teacher to be paid more than another one on the same, that has the same educational level and steps. So fortunately, I have not experienced that, but would be very concerned about it if there was. Basically, it's treat people good. That's what it all is. Treat people good.
Thank you very much. Question?
Thank you.
And this is question number 8.
What will you do to improve health care?
Richard, you'll take this first, please.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, I think that we need to look at health care prevention methods. We need to certainly encourage the county health departments and also the hospital facilities to have programs where individuals who are not in the best physical condition be placed on a program to revitalize their health. After a medical exam, for instance, certainly walking is a great exercise, swimming and so forth. So preventive health is very important. Vaccinations go along with that, proper dieting and so forth. Having those individuals counseling people on the health care. There are some programs that we have now for small businesses that were enacted with the last session, with grouping association plans for healthcare, and also having Farm Bureau work with Wellmart. And this is a very important issue, but
Time, sir.
my time's up again.
It is. It is. Thank you very much. Holly, please.
Thank you.
There's a lot of things that we need to work on with our health care. My concerns are that we do sick care versus health care. Average physicians are spending roughly 7 minutes with an individual. It's really hard to tell what's wrong in 7 minutes if that's all you've ever seen in the last year. I think we need to work on several different options. One, making sure that it's affordable, of course, so that people can go. We need to work on making sure that we have enough doctors and allow doctors to actually be able to practice. I know malpractice insurance has skyrocketed and several physicians have had to step out of individual practices because of that. There's also a lot of issues where we have with surgical centers versus hospitals and the concerns that go along with that, where surgical centers don't have the same stipulations that a hospital has. Recently, there has been a situation with a 12-year-old boy in Mahaska County who was very, very close, who passed away at a surgical center of a tonsillectomy, and yet it took 37 minutes, if anybody saw that story. That is the improvements we need to do. We need to make sure that everybody has the same standards across the state of Iowa. We need to make sure that we practice health care, not sick care, and we need to make sure that our physicians actually have the right to practice and can do their practice. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Closing statements now, and Richard, you will have the first closing statement.
Well, once again, thank you for this opportunity to come here tonight and speak to you all. This election is very important, as they all are, and it's very important to see many people here tonight who are very involved in the issues. That's really important. That's how you make a sound decision, and that's why I served in the Armed Forces of the United States along with many others, so that you can do that. I've met amazing people on this journey during this campaign, veterans, some of whom served in the same place as I did in West Germany, former students, present students. I've done a lot of listening, but all of them are citizens of the United States. And that's the greatest honor of all, to have that. I think it's very important to treat everyone the same. No one group needs to be highlighted. And also, a person in office needs to be available to all. Qualifications I have, I think I'm very strong. I have a very strong education background, 3 different high schools, 3 different community colleges. I'm a healthcare provider as a microbiologist, and that goes along with my military medical experience. And also I'm very involved in the community with healthcare and the board of directors of the YMCA. And thank you very much. You remind me of my fellow teachers, the Joan, Jen, and Jan. And when I went over sometimes, they definitely let me know about it. Thank you for being so gentle.
Thank you, Richard. Holly, please.
You know, it would be an honor to serve as your voice in Des Moines for District 80. My husband and I have sacrificed to stay here. And our friends, our family, and neighbors, we've lived through here our whole life. We know the people, we know the concerns, and we know the needs. I'm not a long-term polished politician. But what I am is I'm a wife, I am a mother, I'm a community volunteer, and I'm a lifelong resident of Southern Iowa, and I have sacrificed to stay here. My husband and I have had opportunities to go all over the world with our companies, but we refused to let we didn't want to leave our children or take our children where we didn't know what was happening. We are hardworking Southern Iowa people. We have values, we have morals, and we want to ensure our children have the opportunity to grow up like that. But what I really want to make sure is the next generation has the opportunity to stay here if they so choose. If they want to leave, that's fine. But I want to ensure that they have the opportunity to stay and raise their children, my grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, in the same way that we raised our children. So I'd encourage you to build with me. We have a great community. We have a great area, but let's continue to build and grow off what we already have. So please vote June 5th and build with Brink.
Thank you very much. Everyone, please give them a round of applause and thank them. We're going to take a 3-minute break, and then we'll be setting up for the Wapello County Supervisors. Thank you very, very much.
Do you want to? I'd rather not leave my phone. Let me check with the alcohol.
Speak directly into the microphone very closely, please.
Hi, Oscar.
Don't do the second one. Do the first one.
I'm good. I don't feel good. Yeah. I told Brenda and Mike that we have to arm wrestle for who was going to be equal.
That's it. That's it.
And just the blue tape and that stuff, just throw that in my bag.
Okay.
You don't have to hurt after me. I think
Oh, well, it's been awful noisy about today.
After the horses.
Ah.
I suppose, are we going to ask the backfill questions? Of the
Sure.
supervisors?
Sure.
I'll let you read it. And don't forget to say that Russell.
Okay. Take care, Jean. I'm so sorry. Oh.
He's not. Brenda?
Russell.
Russell's not able to come tonight. No, but I think we need to leave it up there, don't we? Yeah.
Okay, so round is 4 questions.
Then that's what we'll go with.
Well, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's like these two sections.
Yeah, they do.
So I have 3 questions. Which one of these do we get this?
You know, and actually, the thing is really sort of like the one because it was high. So they had to do it.
Are we ready to go?
He's reading.
Okay, so I can let them do their opening statements while he's doing that? Okay. All right, we're going to begin with the Wapello County Supervisors. We're going to begin with the opening statements. Each of the supervisor candidates will be given 2 minutes to share their opening statements, and then we will start with question number 1 and move on from there. Mr. Flanders, you are up first, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing a great job with this forum, like you always do. My name's Frank Flanders. I was born in Ottumwa in 1967. My parents moved away in 1970 in search of higher paying teacher salaries elsewhere. And I screamed and hollered. I hated being taken away from my home, and I hated it so much that after I graduated college myself, a couple of years later, I came back to build a life here in the community that I originally came from. And then not too long after that, having gotten a degree in political science and having worked when I was up in Minnesota as a foot soldier for Senator Paul Wellstone's Senate campaign, I wanted to make a difference in this community, and I wanted to make a difference as a public servant. I've served 2 terms on the Ottumwa City Council, 1 term as mayor, and a part of a term up until I was mayor on the Wapello County Agricultural Extension Council. I have a passion for public service, a passion for serving people to make lives better for everybody, regardless of your profession, regardless of your background. And I'd like to think that I'm someone that everyone can count on, no matter what the issue is, no matter who you are. And I've stood up for people as individuals many times, often standing up and speaking truth to power. I'm a strong advocate of economic development. I've got a strong track record in economic development. I've got a lot of ideas that I'm very excited about to move forward with as a Wapello County supervisor to make this Wapello County a stronger, better place for all of us. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. And Wayne, you'll be next, please.
Okay, it's Wayne Hewitt, of course. I've lived here all my life. Been a Democrat all my life. I spent 30 years at Deere and Company, and I have an independent business for the last 35 years also. And I'm a veteran of the Vietnam conflict. I have my wife and I have been married for 49 years. And I have a lot of people in this county that talk me into doing this. I'm not a politician by no means, but I'm going to try. So if I could get your vote, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Jerry?
Well, I want to start off by introducing some people that probably have suffered the most by me being in office. My son, Mike, is standing there with the camera. My youngest daughter, Marty, and her husband, stand up so they can see you. And Aaron, who's my son-in-law, and Oscar, who's one of my grandchildren. And through the years, I'm afraid my kids have been the ones that have suffered the most because of all the meetings that I had to attend. And when I say I had to attend, it's because you people have allowed me to be the best educated politician in Wapello County. And I can say that because we used to have the full-time city councilman where you learned, you knew your job, you ran a department, where now they're part-time. Well, I was full-time for 8 years. Then that changed. We didn't have a city manager. We had a full-time mayor. The full-time mayor for 3 terms was Jerry Parker. And I have served a long time on the Wapello County Board of Supervisors. Every one of those positions was a learning opportunity. And it gave me a chance now to give that back to you. You know, when you heard the previous people talking about the backfill and how it was going to hurt. You know how much it would hurt Wapello County? None. We planned for it. We didn't put that in our budget. Why? Because we know the legislature at many times, they really hurt us. So we planned for it. Now, I think what I've done is I've prepared myself and I have prepared the county for the hard times to come. And you should believe and you should listen. The hardest times for the Board of Supervisors is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Dan?
Thank you. My name's Dan Stroda, and I'm asking for your vote on June 5th. I spent 25 years running the Ottumwa Housing Authority. During that time, I've worked with city, county, state, and federal governments. I helped establish the River Hills Community Health Center, and I served on that board for more than 14 years. I'm running for Wapello County Supervisor to bring my experience and dedication to service to our county government. I want to improve communications between the county government and the people it serves. We're all busy people with work, friends, family. It's hard to stay informed on what's happening in our government on the local level. I want to make it easier for the people in Wapello County to take part in their government, and knowing is half the battle. Whenever you're a homeowner, someone looking for a home or a renter, quality, affordable housing is important. I believe my knowledge of public and private housing development and the need to have an adequate stock of housing in the county I could help with. And I could also help with any developers who might want to build in our county. My experience helping opening River Hills Community Health Center has educated me on how important health services are to our county. We need quality behavioral health services in Wapello County. I would like to help people get the care they need. We need to attract industry to the area, and we need jobs that pay people a livable wage. I'd like to see everyone that grew up here have the opportunity to live here. I would like to work with state and federal government to get Wapello County designated as an opportunity zone, a new program under the most recent federal tax bill. I'm Dan Stroda, and I hope I have your vote on June 5th.
Thank you, Dan. Frank, you will take question number 1 to begin. Question?
Well, Jerry, you took the wind out of the sails of my question because it was going to be, as Board of Supervisor, what will you do if the legislature does not approve the backfill in 2019? And I don't know who goes first.
He started, but we go to, yeah.
Okay.
Frank, you'll take this, please.
Thank you. Well, I was faced with a situation very similar to that when I was on the city council. We had a big reduction in our budget after we had gone through and approved the leanest budget we thought possible. We had to go through it again, piece by piece, looking at every individual item in that budget and determine what was important and what was not. If we'd just gone in and hacked and slashed, important programs would have been lost while unimportant ones might have survived. But we went through it with a fine-tooth comb and a scalpel. And that's what you have to do whenever you face a budget crisis, not just in government, but in a household too. Everyone knows what's essential and what isn't whenever someone gets a pay cut or a loss of a job. And we'd have to respond to it much in that way. And when you do that, you've got to look at the priorities that affect people the most. You've got to look at it with logic, but you've also got to look at it with compassion. We've got to remember our essential services. And at the same time, we have to realize that sometimes there has to be just enough set aside for whatever opportunity might still present itself in terms of economic development.
Thank you. Wayne, you'll be next, please.
Well, as Jerry just mentioned earlier, that this backfill has been taken care of, and we really can't do anything until the state decides what they want to do. So we'll just have to sit and wait.
Thank you very much. Jerry?
Well, having the experience of facing these situations before, we didn't feel we could sit and wait. The waiting would mean that we would budget that $240,000. We would be budgeting it and it would be spent. And then when we find that we don't get it, what happens? There's layoffs, there's cuts in services. So what we did is we reduced our carryover balances to that tune. That means we reduced no services. We laid off no people, and we were just going to absorb the cut. The good thing is now, since we took that out of our carryover balances, since it wasn't cut, what happens next year? We'll have $240,000 that we did not anticipate that will be in our carryover balances. It's the long-range planning like that. And long range is not always 10 years. Long range is the next budget.
Thank you, Jerry. Dan?
I appreciate how the county currently has taken a proactive approach to make sure that we don't fall short of any funds to be able to fully operate the county with the budget that they have. My experience with the Ottumwa Housing Authority, we plan much the same way because many times we begin the federal fiscal year with our funding from the federal government, and then later on in the government year we found out that we didn't receive as much funding as they estimated we were going to receive. So I have lots of experience budgeting, very much similar to how the county has talked about how they conduct business. So I would be very in favor of continuing that process.
Thank you very much. Question 2, and Wayne, you'll take the question when it is asked.
Access to quality, affordable housing is an issue to rural communities across the state. What would you do as supervisor to address this in Wapello County? And this question is from Holly Berg.
Well, there's a lot of things that can be done, but I mean, I don't know. It's something I'd have to work at with whomever I was with normally, but I'm sure there's something to be done with it, but I have no idea right now.
Thank you. Jerry?
Well, the city has been, and the county has had discussions with them over opportunities with developers. You know, even though the county is not doing the St. Joe development, and the city should be commended for what they're doing there, that future development, the county is participating because that's a TIF district. What that means is the future property taxes off of that would go to reduce your property taxes are now going to go to assist on taking care of the streets that are in that area. We may disagree about that, but it's a good idea. I do applications for the Regional Housing Trust Fund, which can help put $12,000 worth of improvements into people's homes based on their income. It helps them, but it more helps the neighborhood when you can take a home and make it livable for the next 25 years. And I do all the applications for Wapello County.
Thank you, Jerry. Dan?
My experience has been that numerous things can be done. I've sat in with developer meetings numerous times and was involved with lobbying the state to create some of the affordable housing that's been developed in Ottumwa the last 15 years. Also, I spent time with individuals that from looking at everything from redeveloping the St. Joe Hospital facility to several other buildings in town to recreate housing for like the downtown Main Street area. There's housing that's getting developed on the second story. Also, I believe that it's really important that we support landlords because they also have a business in our community.
Thank you, Dan. Frank?
Well, affordable housing need not just be housing developments. It can also be single unit homes. It need not only be in Ottumwa either. It can be rural or it can be in the other cities in Wapello County. As someone who's presently restoring a Victorian home, I think that there are a lot of older residential buildings in our community, in our county, that have a lot of potential. And there are grants out there for them as well. So it's not just a matter of looking in Ottumwa at housing developments. It's about looking throughout the entire county at all kinds of affordable housing. There are many good examples of older homes that have been turned into dream houses, and young families coming to Ottumwa looking to start a life, or coming to any part of Wapello County looking to start a life. All of these can create opportunities for them, and there is federal grant money available for this as well as for the multi-housing facilities.
Thank you very much. Question?
What past Board of Supervisors policies do you agree or disagree with? And this question is from Alex Stroda.
Wayne, you'll take this one, please.
I think one of the most current ones was the building a complex, sports complex, and taking away farm ground that makes good money for the county. And they want to put this complex in an area where it's outside where nobody will get to it, basically. Yeah, they've got all kinds of complexes in the city to use what they wanted to use it for. And I entirely disagree with putting that money in something like that.
Jerry?
Well, I certainly agree with every policy the current Board of Supervisors has. However, I would point out to Wayne that sports complex is not a reality. That is, and some of you are shaking your head. It's a study. Someone wanted to know what we needed and what we don't need. This is not going to tell us, okay, let's go out to the county home, which is prime land for Wapello County that we make $90,000 a year off from. It's not a plan to go out there and build a sports complex. We want these people to tell us, folks, don't put one out there. We don't need this. Ottumwa Park is a good place, or Ottumwa Park's not a good place. Right now, we're all going in different directions. And if you drive through Ottumwa Park, look at the kids over there playing softball and baseball and soccer and tennis. Are we leaving something out? We want to make sure we're providing this next generation with opportunities. That's what the plan is.
Thank you, Jerry. Dan?
That's a little difficult following Mr. Parker on that one, but two things come to mind for me. I really appreciate the Board of Supervisors recently going through the process of voting to increase the minimum wage so that we had a livable wage for our young folks here in Wapello County. I realize that's pretty much a done deal now because that authority has been taken up by the state legislature, no longer is available to the county. So I would like to work towards getting that authority back on the county level. The other thing that I think is really important, if you live in the county and you live on a rock road, in other words, a rural road, you know that Wapello County is going through a process right now of redeveloping those roads. And I think that's a great thing that's happening.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Well, I can think of a couple of things. Dan stole my thunder on the minimum wage. Jerry, you and your colleagues, great job. You stood up for the people in passing that. A few years before that, they partnered with Legacy and some other organizations up at Indian Hills to bring in an entrepreneurial incubator for small businesses. And I think that was a really good idea too. And I'd like to see, as a supervisor, I'd like to work on more things like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Question?
What should the county's policy be on sexual harassment, and how would you support the policy be put into practice and be monitored? This question is from Beb Versteeg.
Jerry?
Well, if you'll notice, we haven't had any sexual harassment complaints. And I kind of discussed with our recorder, they happen to have a guy working there now. And the consideration was, what's going to happen? We don't really have guys working at the courthouse. So it's difficult unless you're an elected official to be involved in something like that. We haven't faced that. Maybe it's because the ladies haven't told us about it. Maybe they haven't come forward. But I think one of the opportunities, it's one of the things that's helped us is the fact that we all know what we should do at the courthouse. And we have a tremendous group of elected officials at the courthouse. Not a one would allow for that kind of action to happen.
Dan?
My position would be zero tolerance. As a father of 2 daughters and a grandfather of 4 granddaughters, I think they should have the same respect as a man in the workplace. And I think it's extremely important that whatever needs to be done as far as personnel activity within the county's handbook or policies or whatever should be taken care of so that it's modern and up to date and everybody gets the respect they deserve.
Very much. Frank?
Zero tolerance is the only way to go. As a union shop steward, I deal with sexual harassment from time to time, and it's very, very tough to get the victim to come forward. You have to take the pressure off the victim by having an atmosphere of zero tolerance and an atmosphere where everybody is educated and where a problem can be nipped in the bud with education, letting people know what is inappropriate, what does constitute harassment, what doesn't. Whenever you have 2 people at different levels of power, it becomes a much more sensitive situation than if you have coworkers that are of equal positions, because of all the ramifications that come if a person occupying a superior position advances on someone who's their subordinate. That is something that I have absolutely no tolerance for whatsoever, regardless of however you mix and match the sex or sexual orientation of the perpetrator and the victim. Zero tolerance, only way to go.
Thank you. Wayne?
I agree with them also, zero tolerance, and they've made all the issues that would need to be made, and that's the way it is. It's zero tolerance.
Thank you very much. Question?
How do you propose to attract new businesses to Wapello County that offer higher paying wages?
Dan, you'll take this question first.
That's a very difficult challenge. I know the county, all the cities in Wapello County, many of the agencies, including the Planning Commission, have worked on the Economic Development Commission. Everybody's worked on trying to find opportunities where they could bring businesses to Wapello County. It's extremely important that we have a work environment in our county that would motivate industry or businesses to relocate here. I think it would be important as a Wapello County supervisor to support anybody that would come to our county and look at this area and consider relocating a business or an industry here. My only concern would be that the kind of jobs that are brought to our county would be the kind that would allow people to have a livable wage.
Very much. Frank?
Statistics tell us that pre-existing business expansion is one of the greater creators of higher, better jobs. So I would say working with existing businesses using advantages like Indian Hills, Job Corps, and also to create new businesses and to create new jobs, I think we have to develop the area around the 63 bypass. And that's where the city and the county need to work together. We need to work together for economic development in that area, which would increase the tax base and reduce the tax burden. And we also need to get some better signage, letting people passing through knowing what's available to them in Ottumwa. And so jobs at all kinds of levels with an emphasis on the higher paying jobs. I think that expanding existing businesses and developing the bypass are two priorities that a supervisor should look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne?
First of all, you got to get the hound dogs out to round up these people and then give them a tax break. That'll bring industry in and they get a tax break. Of course, a lot of times they don't always stay, but you get them in, maybe they'll stay longer. And you just got to get out and find them. They're not going to come to you. It's a hard process, I'm sure, but that's what you need to do.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
Could you read that question again?
How do you propose to attract new businesses to Wapello County that offer higher paying wages?
Okay, well, as I listened to these people, they pretty much restated the problem that we have instead of giving the solutions. Let me give you the solutions. When we first started, we created the Bioprocessing Training Center in Eddyville. Do you folks know who owns it? Wapello County does. You know who raised the money for it? Wapello County. It cost $2 million. You know what Wapello County put into it? $10,000. You know what it does? It trains young folks to get $40,000 jobs by walking across the street. Job Corps. I was the final speaker that convinced Senator Harkin that we needed Job Corps, which creates about 300 educated students every 9 months. And if you have a good workforce, that's been one of our big complaints, the workforce. If you have a good workforce, you will get the development. And the incubator is another opportunity that Wapello County was involved in. So we've already done a lot of these things.
Okay, thank you. Question?
How do we better improve the county and city working relationship to bring more jobs and improve the economy in Wapello County?
Frank, you'll take this first.
Thank you. Well, that's one that I've been running on. I think that we do need to improve the city-county relationship. I was just in Mayor Lazio's office a couple of weeks ago, and we had a long, productive, and cordial conversation where we talked about many opportunities there. And I hope that I get to work with the city staff and the city council. And also, I'm looking forward to working with the city councils and the mayors in the other cities of Wapello County, not just Ottumwa. When you look at communities that are successful, it's where cities and counties work together. And to improve relations, it starts just by stopping in and visiting and saying, what can I do? What can we do together to make things better for everybody? And it really can take off from there.
Thank you. Wayne?
I personally think that they're working together pretty good right now. I mean, I'm not in it. I don't know anything about it, but from what I've been told, I mean, Jerry's told me and the other supervisors that they've been working together as it is. I mean, and you can only do so much from the county to the city because the county is a rural area that the money is in. So I think they're doing fine.
Thank you. Jerry?
Well, if you take 5 city councilmen and 3 boards of supervisors and you put them all in the same room, that's, if my math is correct, 8 people. How many of you are married and you have disagreements with your spouse? That's just 2 people. We're going to have disagreements. But in the end run, let me tell you what we've done. We got the best run landfill in the state. And you know how it is? The city council gets 1 vote. The board of supervisors get 1 vote. That's it. When the city needs to have weeds cut along the Jefferson Park drainage ditch and they can't get it done timely, you know who they call? They call me. We go do it. Nobody knows about it, but we do it. The Wildwood Park, the Frisbee Park over there. The park department didn't have enough money to put in all new baskets. What did the county do? That's not our park, city park. We paid for the baskets. We didn't run to argue with anybody. We just did the cooperative effort. That's the thing we are required to do.
Thank you. Dan?
I concur with the other three gentlemen that I don't really believe the communication between the cities in Wapello County and the county supervisors are really that broke. I think there are times when they should work a little harder to work together, but also I think in the past there has been things that have come out of different organizational opportunities that allowed them to get really good stuff done. Like Mr. Parker mentioned that we have an excellent landfill. That's one of the things when I worked at the Housing Authority we were involved in using, and we really did appreciate the cooperation of the city and the county to help with our budget at the Housing Authority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Actually, we're out of questions designated for
Okay.
the supervisors.
All right. Well, that would have been number 7. So you guys got off too early. So we will do closing statements. And so we'll go back to Wayne. You will take the first closing statement tonight.
Mine's going to be short. A lot of these questions that were asked, I'm not involved with it anyway, and some I'd have to get into and learn about it. But other than that, I enjoy this. It's new, and I do thank you for having me here. And I would like your vote on June 5th. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jerry?
Well, if I'm fortunate enough to win and you decide that the experience that I've accumulated through the years is going to help you, I want to say thank you. But when I win, I'm not going to win both seats. I'm going to win one. And one of these people who are friends of mine is going to win the other one. And you know what? That's going to take a lot of training. And why? Because I don't think, if I can recall, they've ever been to a budget hearing, which means they're new on putting a budget together, a county budget. I've not seen them at supervisor meetings, which you really should, a few years ahead of time, start coming. It's not a criticism of them. It's just a fact. They haven't been there. I have. Does that mean I'm going to tell them what to do? No, it means I'll explain the situation and then you decide what you want to do. But if I'm fortunate enough to be one of the supervisors, I will bring back to the table someone who's prepared 20 budgets for the county, do all the collective bargaining now for the county. I do the housing projects for the county. And I am so fortunate that you've allowed me to do that, that if I don't win, I'm still going to say thank you for the time that you let me serve. And I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Dan?
I'd like to thank the city for providing the location and for the League of Women Voters volunteers for putting on this forum tonight. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity. I guess I'd just like to reiterate, I would like to be a supervisor to make sure that there's good communication in our county between the county supervisors and all the citizens of Wapello County. I think I could bring my experience as far as any kind of opportunity to bring more housing, make sure they're safe and affordable and accessible housing in Wapello County. My experience as a board member on the River Hills Community Health Center, I think that's important because I think during county government, the behavioral health issues that the county has to go through every year to make sure that that responsibility is funded. I think I could bring some experience there, being involved on that board and that entity providing a good share of the behavioral health, mental health services to Wapello County. And lastly, I guess I would like to say, I would hope, as if I was given the opportunity to serve as a supervisor, that I could bring some jobs to this area, that young people could continue to stay in Wapello County, that have grown up here, have been educated here at Indian Hills or some of the major colleges in Iowa, and then have an opportunity to stay home and live here. So it would be my honor if you chose to vote for me, and I would become supervisor to be able to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Frank?
Thanks again to the League of Women Voters, and thanks to the City of Ottumwa for the use of this facility. Jerry made an excellent point. 2 people are going to be elected. That means that whichever one of us gets 1 seat, if that person's me, I can work with any of these gentlemen here. I can work and have worked with the supervisor who's midterm presently. And I can work with every member of the city council. I can work with every mayor in Wapello County. And for those of you who look around here and may have picked a favorite candidate, you have 2 votes. If I'm not your first choice, I would respectfully request you consider making me your second choice. I can work with anybody else who wins, and I will work for you. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give them a thank you with a round of applause, please?
I'd like to thank all the candidates for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. And to our audience members, thank you as well. Quick reminder that the primary will be held this coming Tuesday, June 5th. The new voting ID laws will be going into effect starting in 2018. We do have cards that identify what those acceptable forms of identification are. For 2018, you will be able to sign an oath that states your identification. In 2019, you will need some form of identification for primaries and general election. We'll meet again prior to the general election for a candidate forum at that time. Thank you all.